dream.
It's one small step for man.
I am the greatest.
You want something, go get it. Period.
But Eric, thank you for chatting. It's been a little bit since we've been able to coordinate to talk, but I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down.
You got it. Same thing here.
Yeah, awesome. So where are you at currently, geographically?
Geographically, I'm in Westchester, New York.
Oh, nice. Oh, wow. I actually have a partner who grew up there.
Where?
Yeah.
What town?
He grew up in, or near there, New Rochelle.
I'm about 8 minutes from New Rochelle. I'm in Rye.
Yeah, he had his parents had a Greek grill, Tzatziki Greek grill.
Oh, wow. In New Rochelle?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Like a diner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, similar to it. But
cool.
Yeah, with that said, I know you're doing different things and traveling now. I think the best place to start for anyone who might not know you, say a stranger on the street, just like a thumbnail version of where you're at, what you do, and your focus when it comes to media, which is very extensive.
Yep. So I am a 20-year veteran of sports television. So I produce sports studio shows and sports events. I launched the NFL Network with a team and produced Thursday Night Football. So I've spent many hours in production trucks and production control rooms producing various sports news and sports highlight shows. Currently, I am starting and running a sports podcast network called the Believe Podcast Network. So I'm the president of that company, where we have over 150 athletes doing podcasts for their teams. So we have 32 NFL shows with 32 NFL legends. We've got NBA shows, MLB shows. So really what I love to do is I love to produce former athletes. I love to hear their stories, and I love to hear them talk about the sport that they love. That's what I've done in a very quick elevator ride. But that's what I've done, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Yeah, I found too, all athletes more and more are getting into being analysts and all these things post their career, which they're natural at it, right? They analyze the game, they play the game, they know the athletes. So it's fun to watch. It's organic. Yeah.
So the hardest part for them is that there's only so many seats. There's only so many games to fill. So the top, the 0.1% get those jobs. And then there's 99% of the former athletes that are really looking for something in media to do after they retire. And what the podcast company does, what Believe does, is it gives these men and women opportunities to start their own show, not wait around for a legacy television or radio network to hire them. And it allows them to learn media, learn how to communicate, and eventually monetize what they're doing. So that's what I love doing. There's always going to be the men and women that win the gold medals or win NBA championships. They're going to immediately, go right to Monday Night Football or NBA on ESPN. It's the other folks that need a path. And that's what's really exciting about what I'm doing now.
That's awesome. Right. So before we get to Believe and all of that with the podcast networks and everything you're building with former athletes, I want to ask about the connections and how much it takes to launch those shows and have your own media group. But before that, I want to ask about the day-to-day and what it takes to run, television networks and even Thursday Night Football. There's probably so much that goes into it that people don't see. So when you first started, were you like a guy lower on the totem pole, or with your experience, did you already start? Okay.
So really where I started was I was a college hockey player. And sophomore year, when my career ended, I started broadcasting the games on radio in upstate New York. I always had a real interest in live news, live sports. I did internships when I was in college in News 12 New York on Long Island, and just tried to be around it as much as possible. Right out of college, I went to ESPN, so I was a production assistant, which is the first job, the first full-time job. It's even after being an intern. The first full-time job as a production assistant. I was at ESPN for a year. Left there and started doing production assistant jobs around New York City, and just tried to take in as much as I could. And then eventually, Fox Sports started a cable network in California that a lot of us from ESPN went out to, and again started at Peg One, and then just kept finding new opportunities and taking advantage of them as I kept moving on in my career.
It's amazing. Yeah, the sports world, that seems to be like the step-by-step, the ladder method, because even one of my favorite stories, Eric Spoelstra, he coaches Miami Heat, you know of him obviously. Yeah. He started watching tape in the summer as an intern. I think he got the gig somehow through his dad. Someone worked there, and it was in the Miami Heat organization too, and he worked his way all the way up. And there's something about that that's special, because not only you get the experience that you need for seeing each part of the business and organization to where you get to be the top level person, but it's very humbling. I have my brother, actually, similar trajectory with the NBA, but nonetheless, so you work your way up, and you are where you are now. You were where you were when it comes to Thursday Night Football, the broadcast networks, and that. What's the day-to-day from setting up to breaking down for having a show run successfully?
So regardless of the size of the show, there aren't enough hours in the day to pull one of these shows off. So again, whether it's a college TV show when you're in college or Thursday Night Football, the more time you put into it, the more attention to detail you have, the more passion, the more energy you have about it, the better it's going to be, right? And that's like anything. For a Thursday Night Football game, for a Sunday Night Football, for Monday Night Football, you have a team of hundreds of people. So there's part individually, you're going to work really hard editorially to pull off the show you want to pull off, but you also have to have the trust and the faith of hundreds of people to do their jobs, because there's so many different areas. It really is why a lot of folks who played sports in high school, in college, and professionally, why they like this so much, and is it's really an extension of another team to be on. Because if you don't have the ability to delegate and then rely on your team, again, no matter how low or how high that person is, there's no totem pole. If one person's a weak link, the show will be affected. So it takes a small village to pull off Thursday Night Football. It takes a village of people to, I just launched a show on the Bally Sports Networks, a nightly 90-minute show, Monday through Friday. It takes a team to pull that off, from a technical team to an editorial team to a creative team with graphics to an editing team. So you put together a group of people and to support the on-air talent, but it takes, you can work on it for 24 hours, you can work on it for 12 hours, but it takes a solid group of people to do it all together.
Right. I love the sports analogy. Being a part of business now, we always use either Army analogies or sports analogies.
Yeah, I feel like the Army, the military analogy sort of went out the wayside a little bit, but
yeah.
But it is true, it's let's say not even Thursday Night Football, but when I did Sunday morning football shows, we did a 6-hour block of the NFL Network when I was there. The amount of detail that has to go into an information and entertainment show like that to gain the trust of the viewers, it's huge. And you're there to support the folks that are on the camera to deliver the message, but there's a massive amount of work that goes into a show like that. The Sunday morning shows have so many viewers. You've got to be perfect.
Right.
And so a lot of work goes into it, and a lot of teamwork goes into it. And I think that's what's so exciting about it. Not to mention it's live. So these live events, for me, that's the most fun, because that's the biggest adrenaline rush and the most fun,
right.
to put those things together.
Yeah, when the pressure's on, you gotta perform. That's true.
Yep.
Yeah. So the couple pillars of running a show successfully, just one show during the day, that's it. You mentioned a couple. Can you go over those categories again? Publishing team, editorial team, all that.
Yeah. So there's a newsroom that's gathering, information and news and notes from around the country, around the sports world. There's an editing team behind the scenes that's, putting packages together to fit into the show. So they're manually editing elements for the show. There's an entire, obviously there's an entire group of on-air talent, depending on how big the show. It can be 1 person to 10 people. There is a director in the control room that's directing and cutting the cameras and directing the show. There's probably 6, 7, 8 positions in the control room, from a producer to a supervising producer, a technical director that is working for the director. Then you got 5, 6, it could be up to 7 cameras on the floor that are being moved around by the director and stage managers. So on a Sunday morning show, you're getting up to, 5, 6, 7 different departments all coming together by the leadership of sort of the lead producer and the director.
Right. Wow. I didn't know it was so complex. Because I think the thing that makes it so is that when it's live, that's the hardest part. If it's recorded, I mean, you have takes, you have cuts, it's fine. But if it's live, that's.
I always found taping shows harder than even live, only because the mentality of taping a show could be that someone wants to stop down, right? And say, let's do another take. Live, one of my old bosses, David Hill used to say that live, once it's said, it's off to Pluto. Never get it back. Once the show's over, it's off to Pluto, on to the next show. But yeah, getting a live show, up in the air into folks' video devices, there's only one way to do it, whether it's going to your phone or going to an 80-inch TV monitor. It takes a small village to get that stuff up, from engineering to tech to everyone.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask your favorite thing about media, because media, I mean, video is just taken by storm, everything. And I mean, on my phone, I can get Twitter. I'm watching March Madness for free on my internet browser sometimes on my phone on Safari, or on Instagram, you have Reels, right? So that, like, for example, say the NFL, they have to distribute that out, not only to all the different places, which I guess it's captured one and then blasted out, but also even if they have their own app too, it has to go there. So video is taking up so much. What's your favorite thing about media, and what do you see being a big leverage point for a media person going forward?
So the one thing I really love about media right now is the ease for the influencer or the talent to connect directly to his or her fan. So like you said, with Twitter, with a podcast, which is a very one-on-one relationship, they don't, so everything I just talked about putting Thursday Night Football on with hundreds of people, there's been over the past few years, the ability to scale that way down and use Zoom or use a camera phone to record video. And a bunch of different men and women are taking full advantage of not needing a full crew. They can do it all on their own. So we're seeing stars make it through now this digital landscape where they can go directly to their fans. That's really exciting. That's what's exciting even about the podcast space, the audio and video on demand space, which is it really takes 1.5 people to do what we're doing right now. And millions of people are doing this, and they're finding ways to make a living, or they're finding ways to express themselves. That's the excitement that I and we as media executives have right now. Is there's still that big event. There's still March Madness with hundreds of people to produce it, make it look great, make it exciting, get all the replays, get all the graphics. But there's also a smaller version now, a scaled down version of sort of one-on-one communication and the ability to create that a lot of folks are taking advantage of. That's really exciting.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like scaling it down to then make your job easier to scale it up. So you said you have podcasts and networks. So there's going to be a ton of different shows you can create because of this model, which is amazing because you have such a knowledge on how to produce a show. So you're like, you can say you've overextended to where now it's like much less. So it's more of managing and seeing strategically what can be best for athletes.
Yep. There's the ease of producing the content for podcasts. They can do it from their home. To build a network, what's hard about it is just that they are all over the country. So again, it's one thing to be on your own and do a show like we're doing right now. Okay. Now it's another to coordinate 32 of these, one for each NFL team. There's 32 teams. To bring them into a network it takes coordination. It takes time. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create this independent NFL network. And even the last couple of weeks, it's been a wild free agency, 2 weeks for the NFL. We're trying to get all these different shows to talk to each other. So when Davante Adams gets traded from the Packers or signs with the Raiders, we try to get the Packers and the Raiders podcast to talk to each other. For starters, it's very easy because they just have to turn on their computer or turn on their camera in their house. But there is some coordination that goes into guys, men and women who are around the country to do something like that. Is my dog popping through on this?
Yeah, I think he wants to say a couple of things on media.
Yeah. I don't know what she is barking at.
Yeah, it should be okay.
She'll stop.
Yeah. So on that point, is it because you have established connections in this realm that it was easy to get former athletes, or was that a hard process as well?
No, it's hard. It's hard because there are some the digital media space from a monetization standpoint is not it doesn't work by just giving out money for people to do it. Okay, so they have to want to do it. They're starting at zero. So yes, but to your question, my relationships with the men and women that I've worked with throughout my career has helped recruiting folks to do these shows, and not just that, is convincing them that this is another way. Remember, when athletes retire, they're still young. They could be in their 20s when they retire. They could be in their mid 30s if they're lucky. They still have a long life ahead of them. Obviously, some of them have other business interests. They'll do other things. But if they like expressing themselves, if they like being in the media space, there's opportunities for them to do it. So that's what I'm speaking with many of them about.
Right. So in a way of as a business would franchise and that franchisor would start from ground up, each team's podcast is kind of like that, but obviously you provide them resources and such. Do they have to figure out how to make different pieces of content as well, or do you guys help out with that as well?
We try to pair the athlete up with a host that knows how to edit and knows how to produce. That's the formula.
Oh, I see.
So the host becomes a bit of the editor and producer. If they can't do that, or if the athlete's doing a show on their own, we have a team of people that help them do it.
Got it.
Yeah, but so we air the long form podcast, which could be an hour. We air that as video because they record these with Zoom or with cameras in front of them. We put that on YouTube. Then we start editing up smaller pieces and start sending them out on all the other platforms. We're now branching. We're now moving. We're now putting a bunch of the audio on radio syndication. So it becomes, once you have this 1 hour recording of a podcast, there's so many things you can do with it. I mean, that, you're much younger than I am. You grew up in an age of a 3-second piece of content on Instagram can be just as powerful as a 1 hour television show. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to start with the podcast and then use that content on every platform that there is.
Right. Yeah, that's the most amazing thing, the redistribution of it. Although sometimes it can be tedious to have to edit for the correct dimensions for each platform, it is still amazing, the opportunity and how each platform is different too. If you have the desire, if you have the motivation, if you have the ambition to have your voice heard, you have to work at it. You have to take advantage of these distribution methods, but it takes work, right? Just like you said, it could be different dimensions. It could be YouTube might want longer form content, and then Twitter might want a 5-second piece of content or just text. But if you want it, there's a way to go get it. You just got to take advantage of it, but it's going to be work. It's not going to just happen. It's going to be work. Yeah. It's like, although it's all decentralized when it comes to media, more and more, especially, Web3 is a whole nother thing. There's still the same pattern with, you got to work hard. You got to put in the work to get it done.
It could be, again, it could be hieroglyphics on a cave to the most technologically advanced video show. The harder you work at it, the more you do it, the better you get at it. You're going to get heard, but it takes work. It takes work to have people, again, no matter what the distribution method is, takes hard work for a fan base to trust you and then to listen to you over and over again. Whether you're the biggest actor, the biggest politician, the biggest CEO, it takes hard work. I'm sure some people are gifted with that, but in order to get better and better, better at speeches, better at public speaking, you have to work at it.
Exactly.
A lot of the athletes, the journalists go to school for it. The athletes, unless they are Charles Barkley or Shaquille O'Neal, Tony Romo, who have been communicating with the media their whole career and just have an unbelievable wit and sense of humor and ability to analyze and explain to the fan base, they're very few and far between. The other athletes have never gone to school for public speaking, for journalism, for broadcasting. So the men and women who come off the field, who come off the court, who come off the rink, who take speech classes, who listen to producers, they get better and better also.
Yeah, the Tony Romo, a great example. He it's like he got his bachelor's right in journalism just by interviewing, post-game interviews, all that stuff.
Well, there probably was a pattern. There probably still is that, guys coming off the Dallas Cowboys, the Lakers, the Yankees, the New York, the LA, the Cowboys, where in their markets, there's such an obsession with hearing from them. So certain players, quarterbacks are speaking much more than someone would be speaking maybe in a smaller market. I think that's changed in the last decade or so because of social media but 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 40 years ago, the bigger markets were producing the talent because you were seeing them all the time. So but it is rare to have a Tony Romo jump into a booth that quickly, and have that kind of impact. I mean, normally, even Troy Aikman, who's at the top of the industry, he started in NFL Europe. He did smaller games. This was 25 years ago. Very rarely does a man or woman sort of hop off, jump off the field right into the top booth and do a Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. I think that community thing you brought up before is so big because you want to listen, just as a business will listen to customers, media, I would say networks, and all the shows aligned with that network. You got to listen to the consumers because a lot of people wanted to hear Tony Romo more and more. They're like, I love this guy, he's so fluent, he explains the game well, and you lean into that.
And he found an even different method. He still does. He predicts the play. So his real skill is, some men and women are really great at explaining after a play happens, explaining it succinctly. They only have in a basketball game, in an NFL game, they only have a very quick 10-second period of time as the game is going to explain what just happened. I think what has been so exciting about what he does is, like a fan, he predicts the play before it happens. And that's really excited viewers, social media, and everyone not only gets a kick out of it, but now it's become like a real pattern, because I do think that's, when you're watching a game with your friends, especially football, where you can see all the players on camera and they're in a formation. When you're watching with a group of friends, you yell at the TV and say, hey, it's going to be a pass, here.
Right.
That's what he started doing. And I think that's something that the viewer really clung to, which was, he watches the game like I do.
Right. Yeah. I have family members, whenever they just so happen to get something said that the announcer or analyst, announcer, it's on the spot, says, they're like, oh, I said that, I'm so smart. So when that connection, for sure. Yeah,
you want to, you either, to me, when I'm producing shows or producing games, you either want that moment where the fan says, I said that before the game, or after the game. We used to call it, growing up, around the water cooler in an office space, which I'm not even sure, generations behind me, my kids even understand what I'm talking about. But you always wanted the next day for two buddies to be at work or in school and say, did you hear what John Madden said? Or basically repeat what John Madden said and own it yourself. When that starts happening, then you've got someone that you trust and you're repeating. So that's what, before there was viral, that's what was viral, right? Like watching Monday Night Football, and Howard Cosell would say something outrageous, and the next day people would be repeating it. And that's how it that's how some of these announcers or productions, and again, it could be a scripted show, it could be a movie. That's how it goes viral when the fan base is just sharing it on their own.
Right. Yeah, they become the influencers of the show, in a way, ambassadors of the show. Yeah, I never heard it so well communicated.
Well, I mean, influencers is a term we've, I guess, started using over the last decade, but influencers are from the beginning of time, just different methods of distribution.
Right.
I mean, I've heard people talk about and describe. I think the founder of Twitch at a TED Talk described it as, campfire chats are from the beginning of time. And, if you had 20 campfires on one campground going, and the better storyteller at each campfire is going to get the bigger audience. And that's been happening since the beginning of time. The better joke teller, the better storyteller, the smarter the scientist, you're going to get a bigger audience. And the campfire turned into on-stage productions, and then the on-stage productions turned into audio. And it's no different. It's always been the same. People want to listen to the funniest person, or listen to a person that is speaking about a topic that they love. And the better you do at it, the harder you work at it, the bigger the audience you're going to get. That hasn't changed. Just what's changed is the ability, like what we're doing right now, the ability to talk on video in two different places. But you could do this, you could be doing this with someone, on a different continent, obviously. That's what's changed and made it easier to expand that community, or expand that fan base.
Exactly that. Yeah. This conversation's connecting so many dots, because, I have one friend who's doing a long form Joe Rogan-esque podcast, and he's growing like wildfire on social media, YouTube, TikTok and such. And then you have another person who's an influencer who started a podcast right after they blew up on TikTok that I know. Or you have a friend of mine who's an agent, and he's with Kendrick Perkins, and Kendrick Perkins is just like, he's doing pretty well with his different shows that he's on. So It's amazing to see the patterns and how people are utilizing things, and how it's still always been the same, but now it's just different forms and different formats and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's different ways for this talent, these influencers, Kendrick Perkins, Rex Chapman. There's different ways for them to be found. So like Rex Chapman, former basketball player, runs a Twitter feed that is adored by millions of people. He was just put on TV by CBS and Turner executives to do March Madness this weekend, or for the whole tournament. And he was found off Twitter, not just, random auditions or trying to track him down through agents. He was found through his social growth. Wow. That's got to be exciting for a lot of people, especially a lot of men and women who, again, like I said, aren't the MVPs of Super Bowls. The MVPs of Super Bowls, the MVPs of the NBA Finals, LeBron James, Peyton Manning, they get noticed right away. They get job offers while they're still playing. It's the seventh man off the bench. It's the 10th woman on the U.S. soccer team. It's the fifth woman off of a college basketball national championship that now has an ability, a mechanism, a social media platform that they can be noticed by executives who no other way would have really found them. That's right. Exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Well said. And for you, with all of the stuff in the media space, for someone just getting into it, besides just have it be podcasts or production shows, I have friends who are getting into media when it comes to social media, or people working at, Madison Square Garden doing stuff there. So what advice or direction would you give someone getting into the media space if they just want to grow in it and do well?
The first thing, maybe the only thing, is learn everyone's position. So learn everyone's job. So learn how to record a podcast, learn how to edit a podcast, understand what an engineer does in a studio, understand what the director does, understand what makeup and wardrobe have to do to get men and women on the air, understand what talent bookers do to book guests. I think that's one thing I paid very close attention to. And that's one thing, even at ESPN, when you enter, at the time that I entered, you did rotations. But that's the most important thing. If you're doing internships in college, if you're doing things right out of college, is get thrown into situations and learn everyone's job. And that never ends. So that never ends. And even for me, when I transitioned out of the NFL TV production, I wanted to start understanding what is happening with digital production, what was happening with podcasting, with audio, with video on demand. That's why I made the change, because I needed to continue to understand what was happening out there and how this was happening. So I think that's some of the biggest advice. I spent many, many hours bouncing around from location to location in all of the shops I've been in to really understand what everyone does. Because then I can speak with them intelligently. I can understand how long it takes for them to get ready. I could be more patient with when you're overseeing a show of the magnitude of a Thursday Night Football or a Sunday morning an NFL show or World Series. You really start understanding, okay, this group needs to arrive 2 days before. This group needs to arrive 8 hours before. It's crucial. It's crucial in producing content. And by the way, it probably works in a lot of industries this way, where the more you know about what everyone does, the better you're going to be, the better you're going to be communicating, the better you're going to be just as a teammate.
Exactly. Yeah. I think of, film, the terminology, you can't learn it overnight. You got to know every position. There's so much involved to just make a movie. Yeah. Business, it's the same way with wearing many hats. It's, if you want to be a COO or CEO, CEO knows every spot.
Yeah. And the best director of a film is probably going to know what every, you talked about aspect ratios, you talk about filters, lighting, they're going to know.
Exactly.
If they don't, it's going to be really hard for them to lead other people, get the respect of certain areas. Because I only really know this industry. In this industry, again, you need buy-in. Everyone needs buy-in on the team from everyone else on the team. I probably, even midway through my career, when I was even at the NFL, I had an engineer who was older than I was at the time. I had him tell me, you need to know my area better. Now, whether he was right or wrong, I could have been stubborn and said, no, I don't. Why do I need to know how to fix a monitor? But he was right. And I never forget that. I even repeat that story that I needed to dive into his area and really understand what he was doing. So that's a very long answer to what you asked, which was that's my biggest piece of advice for young people getting into broadcasting.
Love that. No, thank you for imparting that wisdom. I would send this recording when it's live to those I know in it, because it's true. It's like, you got to be patient with it too, right? The generation I'm in, because we're in an environment where we have tools that are quick to get things, this process you talked about, you got to be patient to learn every position, stick with it.
Yeah, I think you guys, you are all lucky because you have the ability to do very impactful things with on video and distribute it out to millions of people without the mass scale of people that had to do Monday Night Football or the CBS Evening News 30 years ago. So you can be just as impactful with 3 people, 2 lockdown cameras, and you could go on YouTube for 3 hours every day. You can be Joe Rogan. You can be Pat McAfee going live every day on YouTube with no expenses really other than your own time. That's really powerful stuff.
Right.
What that could do is, if the ambition is to eventually, work at the Today Show or work at, a weekly John Oliver show or Bill Maher show on HBO, that could confuse people because they have hundreds of people working on those shows. There is highly choreographed television shows. Not to say that Bill Maher is any different than what Joe Rogan's doing. They're both imparting their point of view. There's just different levels of detail and production and scripting and writing that are going into each format, right?
Right.
Doesn't make one of them right or wrong. It makes it that there's this new way for men and women with large followings, big voices to get it out there. But for you guys, yes, it could make for complicated times if you go from a one-man podcast that someone's doing to all of a sudden working on a huge film or a huge television show and be like, wait a second, it takes so long to film 10 seconds of a movie. Okay. That could throw some people off.
Yeah. I can see how that can get annoying.
Yep.
For someone that does that. Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Well, overall, I know I picked your brain on a lot of things and asked a lot of questions. I like to leave a little space for if you want to bring anything up that you've been, marinating over or seeing or, enjoying for what's to come in the media space or what's happening. Just a little thing for you.
Yeah. In the sports world, what I have found, I think what everyone is finding fascinating is the diverse voices that are commentating on especially men's sports. So if you look at March Madness, there are female analysts, female play-by-play, more female reporters. And I think that's been fascinating. I think that's been an awesome development. Not only from a gender aspect, from just new voices. I think fans always want to stumble across new voices. So again, Tony Romo. What they loved about that was a new non-traditional voice. And I think opening this up to all different voices, men, women, I know that when you're watching these games or listening to them, people get really excited about hearing from new people. I just don't think they want to hear from the same people every single World Series. It's not a knock on the people doing it. It's just we want to be surprised. We want to be excited about something new. That doesn't mean get rid of everyone every year. It just means give more people opportunities. There are so many former athletes, so many up and coming broadcasters. I love the idea now that we're finding new ways to use new people, younger, older, male, female. I just think that's a really exciting time of what's happening. And I do attribute a lot of that to the various forms of distribution that executives can hear and see more and more people. And then it gives them the ability, they don't feel like it's such a risk because they've already seen or heard these people on their YouTube channels, on their podcasts. I just think that's a really exciting area we're going into.
Right. Yeah, that's spot on. Just from my perspective, not even being in the space much, but just seeing it, I enjoy the different voices too. But to all that, I think there's a lot that people can munch on and take away from this recording in general. And I'm excited for it to play its part. And we're talking about what we're doing, right? Like we're recording as we're talking about how it's going to work. So, this goes out everywhere. It's incredible.
Good. Yeah. I'm excited about it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk and everything you shared as well.
Yeah, you got it. Anytime.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.